All right, I got one more episode of common knowledge in me before I have to go. Before this batch, anyway. Before I have to go, and also before this congestion completely takes me. So sorry for the potentially snotty, different sounding mess that I'm in right now. But let's take a look at some common Magic the Gathering cards. Bravekin Duo is a single white mana for a 1/1 rabbit mouse. You can pay one and tap it to have target creature gain +1/+1 until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. Only as a sorcery is pretty bad. Having to pay mana as you tap this down to give its power and toughness to something else is pretty bad. It's just pretty bad. I think this is just a pretty bad card all around. I'll give it a 1.1. Next up is Thunderhead Gunner. It is 4 and a red for a 4/5 Shark Pirate with Reach. You can also discard a card to draw a card. You activate only as a sorcery and only once each turn. It's from Ether Drift, so we've gotten a couple of newish cards here. 5 mana for a 4/5 isn't awful. With Reach, okay. And it's a free discard outlet. And not only a free discard outlet, it's a free rummage. It's a discard and draw. Okay. Only being able to do it once a turn makes sense. You wouldn't want to just be able to discard your entire deck and completely rummage through your entire deck. I get why you can't do that in Magic the Gathering. That would be messed up. This would be this would be an incredibly good card that would get banned for sure. But only once a turn is pretty sad. Costs a lot of mana to get this out in the first place. Isn't it weird how razor thin the margins can be of whether a card is so busted that it would have to be banned immediately to, I don't know, you give this like a 2.5. I think I will give it a 2.5, but that's one tiny line of text, only once each turn, and that makes all the difference, right? Next card is Weaselback Redcap from originally from Throne of Eldraine. It's a single red mana for a 1/1 Goblin Knight, and you can pay 1 and a red, and this creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. So kind of a fire breathing. You get double fire breathing, but you have to pay twice as much as fire breathing costs. So it's basically fire breathing at that point. On a 1/1 on your 1 drop, that's not terrible. You get to swing it with a 3/1 on turn 2 if your opponent doesn't put in a creature, or maybe you are able to trade with it. You can do this at instant speed, so it's can also be done as a blocker if you wanted to really trade with something that way. I don't hate this. We have better cards. We have better goblins for sure, but we also have just better 1-drop red cards. But this isn't terrible. I'll give it a 2.7. Arbor Elf. Oh boy, this is a hell of a card here. Arbor Elf is a single green mana for a 1/1 elf druid. You can tap it to untap target forest. Whew. We see this in all sorts of ramp decks. You play this with, just to show you some of these, you play this with Utopia Sprawl. Enchant a forest. You choose a color. You get to tap. When you tap your forest, you get the green mana from the forest, but you also get an additional mana of the color you choose. That's pretty big. You get your wild growths, which are a similar enchantment, but it just adds an extra green when you tap that land. So you can put a bunch of stuff on one land, and then one forest, I guess, and then you can use this to untap that forest. So instead of just you can Land of War Elves as a single green mana for an elf that you tap for a single green mana. Very good, an incredibly good card. Gets played in Standard right now. Gets played in Commander. Gets played everywhere. It's Land of War Elves. And this seems like it's the same card, right? You just tap you tap to untap a forest. That's basically the same as adding an extra mana. But when your lands can tap for more than 1 mana, this gets broken. This is broken in Elves. This is broken in ramp decks. This is a broken card. This is just really, really, really good. Really good. I'll give this this I'll give this a 9? 9.1? I'll give this a 9.1. This is, I think, one of the best cards in Pauper. I don't run elf decks. I'm not a big fan of elf decks, but I'm also scared of elf decks. If some, I thank goodness that my friend, who I am the one who I mostly play Pauper with, just this one friend, he does not have an elf deck. And if he tried to make an elf deck, I would very much try to tell him, please do not do that. I do not want to play against this deck. I just don't like playing against elves because they're so explosive. And this is one of the main reasons why. It's such a good card. 9.1, I think that is totally justified. Honestly, could probably go even higher. Incredible card. Best card we'll see today with a bullet. I dare this. I dare the randomness gods to give me a better card than Arbor Elf. Soul's Grace is probably not better. It's 1 and a white for an instant. You gain life equal to target creature's power. Okay, here's what I'll say about this. I do think there's something interesting about this. Gaining life equal to target creature's power. If your opponent is swinging in with, well, I guess it can't be like a big Bogle, could it? Because then it would have hexproof. Interesting. If your opponent was swinging in with, let's go like a Jund Wildfire deck, and they've put the Hydra onto a Writhing Chrysalis, and it's such a huge creature now. It's like a 10/10, and they swing in. This is kind of a fog, right? It heals you for whatever damage that creature was going to do. That basically negates the damage, right? And certainly if you have the deck that has a creature that's huge, this is just straight up life gain. Now, if you're in white, how often is that going to happen? Tough to say. This could go into your Bogle's deck, I suppose, if you're the one making a giant Bogle, but your Bogle's decks are going to have ways of getting lifelink or the Armadillo Cloak, which gives basically lifelink. And so you're gaining plenty of life in those decks. I don't think you need this. I see it, but also white has ways of just fogging the whole board. So I think you probably play those before you play Soul's Grace. But I kind of see the vision. It's not good though. It's not good. We'll give it a 1.7. Structural Collapse is 5 in a red for a sorcery. Target player sacrifices an artifact and a land of their choice. Structural Collapse deals 2 damage to that player. 6 mana, but they have to get rid of an artifact and a land, and they get 2 damage dealt to them. I don't hate it. I don't think even Ponza plays. Here's the problem is that when you have 6 mana, your opponent probably has a number of lands and probably even has a number of artifacts, and they can choose the ones that they prefer, that they care about the least to die. And that makes this a harder sell. Sure, I know I've been on record going I don't like when my opponent gets to make the choice. But this is a lot of stuff, right? Like, yeah, okay, they get to make the choice, but they have to lose a lot. But at this point in the game, they probably have a lot. I don't think it's very good, honestly. I think that you'd have to have this be way cheaper, maybe lose a couple of effects on it, maybe lose the damage entirely. I don't know. There's probably ways of making this card halfway decent, but then it kind of just turns into a Tithing Blade at some point, right? It's like, okay, it's 2 mana to make them sacrifice something, but they get it's so much more limited in what it can do. But Tithing Blade is a really good card. Structural Collapse is not. We'll give this a 2. Goldhound. Oh, have we done Goldhound? I don't think we've done Goldhound. I just think about Goldhound all the time. All right. Goldhound is a single red mana for a 1/1 artifact creature that is a treasure dog. It's got first strike and it's got menace. And you can tap and sacrifice this creature to add 1 mana of any color because it's a treasure. That's what treasures do. Although it's also a creature, so it's got summoning sickness. You can't crack the treasure on the turn it comes in. I like this guy so much. A 1/1 like 1/1, whatever, but a 1-drop that has First Strike and Menace on it. If you put some auras or equipment on this guy, he becomes really sick. And that's out of your 1-drop. I think that's incredibly important to remember, that your 1-drop can be really good. And also, if he becomes no good anymore, you sacrifice him for a treasure, or sacrifice him for a mana because he's a treasure. So you get like a little ramp out of him too. He's good in the early game. He can swing in. He's got Menace, so even if your opponent puts down a creature, you can still swing in on the next turn. He's got First Strike, so whatever creature the opponent has on turn 1, they probably, or even if they have multiple creatures, they probably still don't want to block it, because you can have your choice of what to take out with the First Strike. I think this guy's great. I've seen people say he's too slow, and I guess I understand that. But at the same time, he's a 1-drop. What do you mean he's too slow? I love this card. I really do. I have 4 copies of it. I've told myself that I will find a way to make a commander deck with him. And not a commander deck, sorry, a Pauper deck with him. And I'm going to do that. I think there might be like a Boros equipment aura kind of deck out there. And I'm considering maybe like a heroic style deck. I don't know. But this is definitely a card that I like, and I'm just a big fan. A big fan of Goldhound. I'm gonna give this a 5.9. And I think a lot of people disagree with me, but I'm gonna give it a 5.9. I really like Goldhound. Sangrite? Yeah, Sangrite Backlash is hybrid Golgari, so a black or a green, and a red for an enchantment aura. You enchant a creature. Enchanted creature gets +3, -3. 2 mana, colored pips each, and it's you got to be kind of in a Jundish shell. You could be Gruul, you could be Rakdos, you could be Jund completely. Interesting. I mean, +3 to power can be pretty useful sometimes. The negative for your creatures, the -3 to toughness makes this usable as a potential removal spell. It's okay. I think I would, if I really cared about this kind of effect, I would probably play Nameless Conversion. Nope. Nameless Inversion, not Conversion. So this is not an aura, so it only happens the one time, but it is an instant that gives +3, -3. So it can be useful on your creatures, and it can be useful as a removal spell on opponents' creatures at instant speed. It also has Changeling, and that can be kind of useful if you're, I don't know, if you cast a beast spell. We saw that with like Wirewood Savage, right? A while ago, but we although I think that might, I don't know. It doesn't matter. Sometimes it'll matter that this card has Changeling and it counts as a creature type card. But I think I would take that pretty much every day over Sangrite Backlash. The aura's cute, but nah. No. Let's give this a 2.1. I don't like it all that much. Dueling Rapier. Rapier? I've heard people say it all sorts of ways. Is a single red mana for an artifact equipment. It's got flash, and when this equipment enters, you attach it to target creature you control. Equipped creature gets +2/+0. Be pretty good on a Goldhound, don't you think? I don't hate this. I don't. Now it equips for 4, so if the creature that you attach it to ever dies, and it probably will because you didn't add any toughness to it with this card, it's going to be real tough to equip it to another creature, but there's certainly bounce things, like you could put like a Glint Hawk or a Core Skyfisher, bounce this back to your hand, have it ready to go at flash speed again. Does this go in that Boros in that Boros equipment Goldhound deck that I was just talking about? It might. I would try it out. I would try it out. I'll write it down actually. Dueling Rapier. What do you give it? I'll give it a 3. I think single mana flash speed +2/+0 that stays on the creature. Like we've seen red have that effect as just an instant, and this keeps it. I love equipment that comes into play and attaches instantly. That feels great, especially when it's at flash speed. It's a combat trick at that point. That's great. And even if it just stays on the battlefield and you don't have a core Skyfish or something, it still helps in like an affinity sense where you just have more stuff, have more artifacts on the battlefield. I think this has a lot of potential, honestly. I haven't seen anybody really play it, but I think it has potential. What did I give it a score already? I can't remember if I gave it a score already. I think I did. Let's whatever I said. If it was not a 3.1, I'm giving it a 3.1. Next up is our final card of the day. It is Lymph Sliver for 4 and a white. You get a 3/3 Sliver. All Sliver creatures have Absorb 1. Absorb is not an effect you see very often. So what is that? If a source would deal damage to a Sliver, prevent 1 of that damage. That's pretty cool. It seems pretty tough to beat in a lot of ways. It also comes in the very sweet Future Sight frame. And Selesnya Slivers is a deck in Pauper. This is just too expensive. It is good, don't get me wrong, but it's too expensive of a sliver. You're mostly going to stick to the 1 and 2 mana slivers in Pauper, and you really don't have to do more than that. They are so efficient on their own that you'll just play the smaller ones. You get the muscle slivers up there, your predatory slivers, boost all your slivers' power, and you just swing in. You don't really have to care about absorb. They're going to be so big that they'll overwhelm the opponent anyway. The absorb doesn't really matter. So it's okay, but the one deck that would play it won't play it. So I think we give it a 2.6. And I do want to do a bonus card. Finish it off with one more. Temporal Intervention. Have we done this one before? Have we just talked about it? Let's assume we haven't done it. Well, let's assume we have done it, but I'm going to score it anyway and give you a second bonus card. Temporal Intervention is 2 and a black for a sorcery. It has Void, so this spell costs 2 less to cast if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn, or a spell was warped this turn. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it. That player discards that card. So in some sense, this can be really good. This can be a better Duress. You can pay a single black mana for it, same cost as Duress, but you get a non-land card from it, not just a non-land, non-creature, which is what Duress has. That's pretty good. But you can't cast it on turn 1 like you could with Duress. Because I guess, could you? I suppose technically there's probably a way where you could cast this on 1. I don't have it off the top of my head of how you make the mana. Lotus Petal, right? The Lotus Petal's the answer. You play your Lotus Petal, you tap and sacrifice your Lotus Petal. You have to tap Lotus Petal? I don't know. Lotus Petal costs like $25. I know it's playable in Pauper, but I ain't paying $25 for a Pauper card, that's for sure. But Lotus Petal's the answer. You play Lotus Petal, you crack Lotus Petal to give you a black. You play this, a non-land permanent left the battlefield, and now you get to Duress turn 1, or better Duress turn 1, and take out a creature or a non-land, like any non-land. That's great. So really good, like against a Tolarian Terror deck. You just take out the creature that they're going to play, instead of filling up their graveyard with spells that they want that Duress could potentially do. So there is a play. There is a play there. I don't think it's quite good enough for that. Mono Black Sacrifice would probably end up playing this anyway, as a pretty good denial spell. that you just don't necessarily play on turn 1. Maybe you play it on turn 2, maybe you play it on turn 3, but you get rid of so many permanents in Mono Black Sacrifice that this is not a bad option. It probably goes in your sideboard, but it's still not a bad option for those sideboards. I'll give it a 5.5. And second bonus card, Test of Faith. 1 and a white for an instant, prevent the next 3 damage that would be dealt to target creature this turn. For each 1 damage prevented this way, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. I get where it's coming from. I could see it being useful against green decks and red decks that are doing damage to creatures. The problem is I think there's just too many black decks and too many decks that splash black that just destroy or just cause you to sacrifice. And this isn't going to do much against that. I like that it can put counters on a thing. It can kind of be it can be a combat trick. There's no kind of about it. And there's something interesting about it. I think it's a little narrow though. Yeah, I think it's a little narrow. What am I going to give this? I'm going to give it a 2.3 and say that it's narrow and say that it's not amazing, but there are certainly times that you could play this card and it will feel devastating and you'll be like, man, I'm a genius. The problem is that those opportunities will not come around enough to make it worth it in your deck. Test of Faith, sorry, you're interesting. You are originally from Darksteel. That matters to me, even though you were uncommon then, but you've been downshifted. But not good enough to stand the test of time. Haha! You might have the Test of Faith, but you don't have the Test of Time. Anyway, that's certainly enough out of me. I will catch you next time on Common Knowledge.